Michael, that question sounds like a mouthful, you know. So I think it's Master Angie who said it sounds like a PhD, you know, question. But I think my coaching journey, or the professional coaching aspect, was a conversation that started with my wife. My wife transitioned out of a role that she had been in for about 12 years. And she had this desire, this burden to go into coaching. And so when we started having the conversation, CDI ended up being the place that we were being directed to. And so my wife went to CDI-Africa, and under Lynn's leadership, she underwent the program for the professional coaching certification. And from the moment that Liz started talking, you know, going through this program, she couldn't stop talking about it. So from day one, she started, you know, selling me this idea that I should consider going into coaching. And so by the time she was finishing her course, you know, I was sold out. I was waiting for the next intake, and out of her inspiration, I think really that's what led me to go into the training program. And as I said, we have a program that we run here, Leading Young, and a lot of the work that we do is providing a coaching platform for our leaders in the national parliament, in the Senate, and also in our county assemblies. So out of that, there was also a need and a burden for me to be able to go through the coaching program. And so I joined the CDI. I went through this program. Eileen, I'm sorry I intimidated you. I've never had you confess that. So I think I will come and see you so we can have a one-on-one. And so I go into this program, and I have to say that I went into it more for others. I went into it because I thought I would gain some skill that would help me be more effective in working with other people. So it wasn't something that I went in saying, this is for me. And I think that was the turnaround moment for me, because I went into a training program that then ended up giving me so much value. And it ended up being about me as a person than it was about the people that I would then come and work alongside. And I took away so many lessons. I discovered that I'm not as good a listener as I thought I was. I discovered that my temptation is to lead by telling and showing rather than helping others to explore their own journey. And as I've thought about, you know, this webinar this morning, I thought back to a conversation that I had with one of my mentors many years ago. And we were hosting him here at ICC. And one of the things that I learned is that when you have leaders that have gone ahead of you, that God has used to, you know, touch the world, one of the best things that you can do is to ask them questions. So many times, for many of us, we go with a frame of mind of how can I impress, you know, and maybe look for how can we work together in the future. But I've always discovered that when you ask questions, you walk away with so much more insight and knowledge. So one of the questions that I asked him was, you know, what can I do in this season of my life that would grow me, grow my family, grow my ministry? What is the single thing that I can do, and just to be able to grow as I look at the years that God has set ahead of me? And you know, we talked about family and marriage and personal walk with God, but there's one thing that he said in conclusion, and he said, if you will grow yourself, then your church will grow. If you will grow yourself, then your ministry will grow. And through that process, when it came to the time of going through this coaching program, I reflected severally back onto that statement, that as leaders, so many times we don't invest in ourselves as much. And John Maxwell writes in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and one of the laws of leadership that he writes is the law of the lead. And basically what he says is that no matter your gifting, you will only be able to grow to the level of your capacity to lead. So he says, if out of 10, 1 out of 10, if you are a 5 category leader, then despite your gifting, you will only be able to lead the people that are around you to a 5 out of 10. And so I thought back to that moment over the last couple of days, because many of us that are on this call, one of the most important things that you can do in this season is to be able to grow yourself. And as you grow yourself, what you discover is that you will be able to grow the people that are around you. You will grow the organization that God has placed you in, whatever scope of responsibility that you have through this season. So when you think about that our leadership capacity is the lead to what we do, and you apply that back into the church, it then means that as we lead in our churches, in our ministries, as we lead where God has placed us, if we are not growing our leadership capacity, then there's going to be a bottleneck to what we are able to do. And when I've reflected about just the journey of coaching for me, I said I went in for others, but I took away so many practical lessons of how I can be a much more effective leader. And through that journey, there's one of the books that I read. I read a book called $1 Trillion Coach. You know, it's an amazing book about a coach by the name Bill Campbell. And when you read in the foreword, it says that this man, Bill Campbell, helped to build some of Silicon Valley's greatest companies, including Google, Apple, Intuit, Amazon, and so many others. And he created value of over $1 trillion. And I found it so amazing that Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon, all these top organizations in the world had one thing in common, that all these men and women that are leading these great organizations had a coach that they were having a conversation with. And the book tells the story about how this man came alongside them and walked with them. And he did that in a very professional setting. But when I've reflected on it, what he did was he actually discipled them. It was really a discipleship program that he put them in, and he walked with them, coached them along this process. You see, coaching empowers others. Coaching is about empowering others. We are given the skills to be able to empower others through asking questions. So many times our temptation is to give the solutions and the answers, but I've discovered that asking questions is a powerful tool of leading. I was reading a quote the other day by Nancy Willard, and she says, "Answers are closed doors, questions are open doors that invite us in." You know, if somebody walked to you, imagine the things that you are doing and the various accomplishments that you've made on your journey. If somebody walked to you this morning and said to you, "What you are doing is not good," I wonder how you'd respond to that phrase. If somebody came this morning, sat with you in the office and said, "What you're doing is not good," I wonder how you'd respond. Because that's a phrase that's spoken to Moses. Moses is leading these more than 2 million people through the desert, you know, and he's giving of himself, he's serving, he's giving all of his heart. And then Jethro, his father-in-law, in Exodus chapter 18, verse 17, comes and says to Moses, "What you are doing is not good." You see, Jethro had a front row seat, and he had sat there and seen Moses for the whole day, being there trying to judge and lead the people. And Jethro comes and says to Moses, "What you're doing is not good. You and all these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone." He says to Moses, "What you're doing is not good." And I talk to pastors, I talk to pastors at different levels. I talk to leaders, Christian leaders in the marketplace. I coach a number of them. And when we have the conversation, the one word that can describe all of them is that they are tired, they are busy, they are burnt out, they don't know how much longer they can continue on this journey. You know, there are all these words, and I'm sure this morning, part of your being on this call is responding to that state, that you're in this place where you feel overwhelmed, that you're so tired, there's so much that needs to be done and not enough time to do it. For some of us, we're at a place where we can't wait to pass on the baton to someone else, because we've given everything that we could, and we have no more. We are empty in the tank. And when I listen to those words that Jethro speaks to Moses, I believe that Jesus would also say those words to us, that he would say to us, "What you're doing is not good." Because for so many of us, our leadership is tied to our own capacity. And what I see when you talk about coaching for church leadership, coaching for the spiritual sphere, it's about how do we raise people around us. That's what Jethro ends up saying to Moses. He says to Moses, "Appoint leaders." Actually, he says, "You must be the people's representative before God and bring the disputes before them. Teach them his decrees and instructions, show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave, but select capable men from all people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens." What Jethro is saying to Moses is raise another level of leadership, raise leaders that are around you. And what I have found is that one of the most important responsibilities that as Christian leaders we can focus on is the whole space of raising the next level of leaders. That the growth that we desire to see in where we are is not about addition, it's about multiplication. It's about how do I multiply myself in those that are around me. And what I have found is that coaching is an amazing tool for you and I to be able to multiply ourselves. When you read in Matthew chapter 9 and verse 36 to 38, it's really something that, a scripture that many of us are very familiar with. And it says, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless. Matthew chapter 9, verse 36. It says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. And that's what I find, that everywhere I look, we don't have enough workers. And what I believe that if there is a season that we need to focus on raising workers, that season is now. That one of the most important things that you as a leader can focus your energies on is on raising the next generation of leaders. And we get so busy. What I find is that as ministry grows, we get so busy. I'm not in short supply of things to do. I have so many things that need my attention, but I have to take a step back. There's a book I read by a guy called Gary Kellner. It says One Thing. And it talks about how do you live a focused life. And I've discovered that if I'm able to set apart the time to invest in the next generation of leaders, then over time I will see fruit. Over time, I will see growth. Coaching is a tool not only for your own growth, but for the growth of the people that God has placed around you. I'm in a season of my life where I have a growth team around me. I have a coach. I have a counselor. Pastors, normally we don't talk about some of those things, but you have to have someone that you can go talk to. So I have a coach. I meet with my coach at least every month or every 2 months. I have a counselor. I have somebody that is like a personal doctor, that every so many months we have a conversation. I have someone around me that's helping me with my finances. I have a lawyer, because there are times when there are issues and I have to have somebody that I can refer to. I have a spiritual authority in my life, somebody that I go to in terms of how am I doing in my spirituality. I have a mentor. And then also, I always say my wife is my north, because then my wife comes and she's on the same team with me, and together we're walking through the journey of life, and she becomes a filter through which God speaks to me. So what I'm saying is that you and I need to have the coaching skill. You and I need to go through that experience, not just for us, but also for those that are around us. Take the lessons at a personal level, and then look at it in terms of how can we add value to those that are around us. I know Michael is going to be kicking me off, but I'm going to wind off by sharing one final thought. I believe that as a leader, how you think and process through the decisions you make really matters. And there are 7 different levels of how we think. The first level is the place of effectiveness. Am I doing the right thing? Am I being effective? Am I doing the right thing? The second level is a place of efficiency. Am I doing things right? All of us want to move from effectiveness, want to be efficient. Then there's a third level, which is the place of improving. When we are improving, we're asking ourselves, am I doing the right things better? So we come from effectiveness. Are you doing the right thing? Efficiency, are you doing the right things right? Improving, are you doing the right things better? Then we go into a fourth level, which is a place of necessary endings. What is it that I need to let go from the past as I move into the future? That we have to cut off. As we grow, we have to prune and cut off. But then there's a level where we copy and we ask, what is it that has worked for someone else in my setting that I can apply where I am? So we don't always have to rebuild and start afresh, but we can learn from those that have gone ahead of us. But then there's a place where we get to, and we start to differentiate ourselves. We start asking ourselves, how can I do the things that I'm doing differently? How can I differentiate myself? And I believe that the highest level of thinking is where we talk about possibilities, where we ask ourselves, how can you consider what others think is impossible? How do you step out of the normal thinking and begin to push the waters and to test new levels? And what I believe is that when we operate from a coaching mindset, we then operate at that possibility thinking. That as we ask questions, we push the barriers. And instead of having to be the ones that give answers to our members, to our congregation, to the people that we lead, we then are able to equip them. to be the one that are actually thinking outside their comfort, exploring different. So coaching is a tool that will help you grow, but coaching is also a tool that will help you to grow others in your organization, on your team, and the people that God has set around you.